Mega Drive Mini launched last week worldwide. Known as the Sega Genesis Mini in North America, we've been getting to grips with the amazing 42 game lineup that the Mega Drive Mini dropped on launch, and I couldn't be happier. Now, this is the fourth major Mini. I say fourth because we had things like the C64 Mini, which I'm completely discounting for this video. So the Mega Drive Mini was the fourth major Mini to hit shelves, and gamers have been impressed with some of the Minis, and they've really hated the likes of the PlayStation 1 Classic. So how does the Sega Mega Drive Mini fare for me? I'm not here to give any scientific answers. I'm here just to talk about my experiences and how they fare up against the other Minis behind this camera, actually. So please stay tuned. If you're new here, thump that subscribe button, and I want you guys to watch this entire video and let me know what some of your thoughts and interpretations are of the Sega Mega Drive Mini. So straight off the bat then, the Sega Mega Drive Mini, for me in its tangible form, is the best out of all four. The NES Classic, the Sega, the Super Nintendo Classic, the PlayStation Classic, and then the Mega Drive Mini. Everything freaking works on it, even down to the cartridge slots. As much as you can't put a physical cartridge in, if you have some of the mini cartridges that are floating about online on Etsy, you can put it in there for aesthetic purposes, which adds a really cool feature in terms of what it looks like, and just the nostalgia function of being able to kind of push up the volume rocker. Although it does absolutely nothing because it was for the headphones, it's a really cool thing to have. One of the complaints compared to the Super Nintendo was that the eject button didn't work and the cartridge flap just stayed where it was. It was just kind of molded shut, which is a damn shame. I think Nintendo missed a little bit of an opportunity there, and I feel, as much as the Super Nintendo is my favourite console, that they definitely missed the mark with the game lineup, and I didn't realise that at the time. I've only realised it since the Sega Mega Drive Mini came out and we were treated to a whopping 42 games, including the likes of Mega Man Wily Wars, Castlevania Bloodlines, and many more, compared to the 21 on the Super Nintendo Classic. So I really like the interface as well, because when you pop on the Sega Mega Drive Mini, as with all of the others, you're greeted with the game library. Now this one for me differs a little bit compared to the rest. You have the Super Nintendo and the NES, very similar in terms of layout, being able to scroll from left to right only. You had the PlayStation Classic, which is the worst interface of all four, with the kind of rotating 3D wheel. It looked boring, it didn't kind of flow very well, the colour palette was a little bit off. And then the Sega Mega Drive, you can scroll up, down, left or right, like what you did there, up, down, left or right. Famous Sonic cheat, I'm thinking, with all the different games on there, and it's really easy to use. You can bounce into the settings super easy. Sometimes found navigation on the interface of the Super Nintendo is a little bit more difficult, but for me, there's just ease of use. I will say the one thing that I don't like about the Sega Mega Drive Mini, and it's a really small thing, there's only 3 backgrounds. With the Super Nintendo, if you're playing with the aspect ratio of 4:3 on the Super Nintendo, you've got the kind of left and right panels. You can have lots of different panels. You only get a native choice of 3 on the Sega Mega Drive. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from the internal aesthetics, but other than that, the interface is really nice. I absolutely love it, and I've just got no complaints with what it looks like and what it feels like this far in. One thing that took my breath away a little bit when I opened up the Mega Drive Mini was the controller. I didn't realise, and this might sound stupid, but how long it was since I held a brand new Sega Mega Drive controller. When you click that D-pad for the first time, the up, down, left, right, when you click that ABC button, and it just feels new, and the plastic and the mild kind of grainy texture on the controller, everything feels new, everything felt right, and it just took me back to Christmas 1991 when my sister got a Sega Mega Drive, when her dad brought it to the door and we opened it together for the first time. I really was, like a part of me was back there right then. So I think they've done really, really well. We know that Japan got the 6-button controller, and there's a lot of people in the West that wish that we had the 6-button controller, but I first played on a 3-button controller, so for me, that is what I remember first. There's a huge nostalgia with it. The controllers feel really responsive. There's a little bit of input lag on some games. I think on Columns especially, I was playing Columns, and there was milliseconds worth of input lag. Enough for me to notice, because that was one of the predominant questions I was getting asked on stream, is what's the input lag like? Different games, I think you're going to get different responses, and I think it's the same with the original hardware as well. When you play Columns on original hardware through the Sega Mega Drive, there's also a little bit of slowdown. So, you know, as far as the games go, there's not a massive improvement. I mean, like I say in many other videos, I'm not Digital Foundry. I'm not here to present at frame rates, you know, down to the nth degree, but it was noticeable input lag. Other games such as Castlevania Bloodlines, Altered Beast, Streets of Rage 2, Sonic, I didn't notice any input lag, but I'm certain if we hooked it up to a computer and ran some diagnostics, there may be some input lag. So it's a massive thumbs up from me, really, and I think it leads us all to the question of what do we want to see next from the Mini market? And I think the answer is simple. The Nintendo 64 Mini. I think if Nintendo was smart, they can sit back and look at what's been done well through the Sega Genesis, what's been done bad through the PlayStation Classic, and they can maybe look at their own launch with the NES and the Super Nintendo Mini and say, right, what can we do differently? What I'd like to see are more games. I'd like to see every single button, the cartridge flap completely functional if there was ever an N64 Mini, and I'd like to see more than 21 games like there was on the Super Nintendo, and of course 30 on the NES Classic. I think 40 to 45 is a sweet spot, so fingers crossed we get the N64 Mini next. But what do you guys think? Do we just kind of sit on what we've got now? Do you think the N64 Mini is coming, or do you think that it's not worth it? So back to the Sega Mega Drive Mini then. The game lineup is the strongest out of all the 4 minis. Like I said, Mega Man Wily Wars, if you were to buy a physical copy of that, it's going to cost you hundreds and hundreds of pounds. It's the same with Castlevania Bloodlines. Some of the games on there, like your Sonic 2, you can get for a couple of quid. But that's what I like about it. In terms of its like expense, there's really expensive games, there's really, really cheap games, there's a huge variety of games on there. There's your side scrollers, there's your beat 'em ups, there's your shoot 'em ups, there's your little adventure games, there's your puzzle games, we've got Tetris and obviously Columns. There's a massive variety that just makes for a really eclectic Mini. And I'm shocked to say this, but out of the 4, the Sega Mega Drive Mini is my favourite. I thought it would be the Super Nintendo Mini, but I have to be honest, it's definitely the Mega Drive Mini. So the last points I want to make are around hacking. The second most popular question I've been getting asked is, Gemma, will you hack your Mega Drive Mini? My answer has been no, I won't. The only hacked console I have out of the 4 is the Super Nintendo Classic. The others are in their native state, and I just feel that I'm totally happy with the game lineup. I have the bulk of what I need to play behind me with my Sega Mega Drive collection, so I don't really need to. And as we sit here and as I film this, I don't even know if there's a hack out yet, because I'm not interested in the updates, I'm not interested in the news on it. There probably is, but it's not for me. If you want to hack yours, that's entirely up to you, but I just want to know what some of your comments are and some of your thoughts are on hacking. Is the Sega Mega Drive Mini a-okay in its native state, or do you think it can be improved through adding additional games and possibly some wallpapers? Let me know in the comment section below, guys. It's your turn. So we're going to conclude. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Out of the 4 minis, the Mega Drive Mini looks the best. It has the best physical aesthetic makeup, and it just has the best game lineup, and it has the most out of all the minis, and it's a massive thumbs up. There's not one game on there that puts a downer on it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. If you're new here, there's plenty of content, more videos in the cards, so crack that subscribe button, and yeah, stay with me. It's going to be a great ride. I'm excited. Have a good one. My name is Gemma. Take care. See you soon.